後邊上邊。好，中間前面唔該。低少少唔該。好少有排我啲啊，有排我啲啊。
好，仲有邊位行家未影到相啊？
好呢度。
OK， 各位可以啦，唔該。OK， 唔該晒。
Thank you.
好，唔該晒，唔該晒各位，唔該晒各位。好，各位，好，各位記者。
Friends from the media, welcome to the 2025-26 budget press conference. We have with us the Financial Secretary, Mr. Paul Chan, Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury, Mr. Christopher Ho, Permanent Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury, Mr. Andrew Lai, and Government Economist, Mr. Adolf Leung. We'll first hear from the Financial Secretary. Thank you, Kevin. Hong Kong citizens, friends from the media, good afternoon. This morning, I delivered the new budget. I will give you an overview of the four main lines of the budget. First, expedite the development of artificial intelligence, AI, and use AI to empower other industries. Artificial intelligence, AI, is a new element of new quality productive forces. We want to make it a core industry. We want to make make use of AI to empower other industries to transform. We will prepare for the setting up of a research institute, the first forum, as well as the first international conference on AI robots and the International Young Scientist Forum on AI. We want to make sure that there will be exchange in Hong Kong in terms of AI. Secondly, we want to expedite integrated economic development. We want to strengthen our advantage of the three centers. We want to explore new development areas in the process. We want to expedite the development of new quality productive forces and use these forces to drive high quality development. Thirdly, we want to attract new capital to develop new markets, that is, to expand our circle of friends. We will also hold a conference, a summit of Hong Kong Global Financial and Industry Summit. We will also like to expand our economic capacity. The Northern Metropolis is an important vehicle of economic development and capacity creation. It is also an important area in the GBA. We want to expedite development. That's why we leverage on the power of the industry. There will be diversified development. We will trial large-scale land development, land disposal. We will also moderately increase the size of government bonds. The purpose of the issuance is to invest in the future and to invest in infrastructure, not to pay recurrent expenditure. The fourth area is to launch the reinforced version of the fiscal consolidation program. We will strictly contain expenditure. That is our focus. We will also make good use of government resources and expand source of income. We have a very clear goal and implementation program. In the coming 3 years, together with the previous reduction, the cumulative reduction of 4 years will be 7%. The government, as the civil service establishment, will be reduced by 10,000 posts this year. In relation to all personnel of executive authorities, legislature, judiciary, and district councils, there will be a pay freeze. All these programs will, within 2 years, restore fiscal balance. After that, we will have surplus in our operating accounts. We want to make use of reform and innovation to chart a new path for our future. That's all for my opening. I'll now take questions. If you would like to ask questions, please raise your hands when you're named. Tell us your media outlet. Please don't ask more than 2 questions. Over there on the far side, a lady in white. I'm from Now TV. In relation to cutting of public expenditure, there was a proposal for pay cut for civil service. Now you've decided on pay freeze. What are the considerations? In relation to reduction of posts, well, there will be 2%. There will be mega projects in the future. Will there be rehiring? And what will be these posts? Well, previously there was the restoration of the hotel accommodation tax. Now you increase air passenger departure tax. Are you concerned that passengers will go to cheaper places, say for example Shenzhen? This year there will be a pay freeze. The pay freeze covers principal officials, civil servants, personnel of the executive authorities, the legislature, the judiciary, and members of the district councils. We have considered a number of factors. In the past 2 years, we have registered economic growth. We think that the growth will continue this year. With continued economic growth, the earnings of the general public continue to increase. In nominal terms, the amount of earnings of those who are employed increased about 6.9%. In real terms, 2.4%. The labor market is still tight. We have a low unemployment rate. I believe that the earnings of employees will likely increase because there is room that allows it. We have launched a physical consolidation program. This is a systematic way to cut public expenditure gradually. In 2 years' time, we will be able to restore our balances and bring the operating accounts to a surplus. Apart from controlling government expenditure, we have also set a goal for a reduction of civil service establishment. From 2024 to 27-28, there will be a cumulative reduction of about 7%. Within this year, we will be able to cut about 10,000 posts. We have a combination of policies. You can see that public finances will stabilize and it will become sound again. We have taken a number of factors into consideration. We think it's appropriate to propose a pay freeze. You also asked a question about air passenger departure tax. We've done some research. Our airport is, after all, very competitive. Every day there are about 200 destinations and 1,000 air movements. We have connections with other places in the world. The departure tax will be an increase by several dozens of dollars. We think the impact will be minimal. When we increase revenue, please understand that we have a number of principles in mind. Firstly, we have to consider our competitiveness. So in terms of profits tax, salaries tax, we have to consider our competitiveness compared to other places and our ability to attract capital as well as talents. When we propose measures to increase revenue, we take into account the impact on the general public. Previously, there was the hotel accommodation tax. In addition to other taxes, what we have in mind is to minimize the impact on the general public. Of course, Hong Kong people will go outside to travel. When they do so, they pay a slightly more. It will be a very small percentage of the airport of the airplane ticket. We have devoted a large amount of resources on facilities such as the third runway.
Next question, in the last row, the gentleman in suit.
In the new budget, we noticed there is the reinforced version of the Fiscal Consolidation Program, and you want to make use of innovation and technology to develop the economy. I would like to say this. How do you balance a cut in recurrent expenditure while increasing input to innovation and technology? Would there be a reinforced version of resources devotion to INT? Thank you for the question. You're from CCTV. We launch a reinforced version of the Fiscal Consolidation Program for a number of reasons. The main reason is to contain public expenditure. We want to, in a suitable manner, increase our revenue while making better use of government resources. We have set a very clear pathway and goal. Say, for example, all the way to 27, 28, the cumulative reduction in recurrent expenditure will be 7%. The civil service establishment will be reduced by 7% as well, which is quite considerable. This year, there will be a cut by about 10,000 posts. Under the reinforced version of the program, we want to make better plans for government expenditure. We have put in place a number of endowment funds for various projects. The endowment funds have been operating outside the government account. We have made some adjustments and we have done some research. The endowment funds are set up for different reasons. Some are set up through administrative measures, while others through legal means. We have conducted a stocktake. We realized that there is about $180 billion in balance in these funds. So for the funds set up through administrative means, we have set aside the amount they need for operation in the coming 5 years. The rest is brought back to the government. This is to make better use of government resources. Thirdly, under this Fiscal Consolidation Program, we issue bonds, mainly to support the development of the northern metropolis. It's an investment for the future, for infrastructure. In the coming 5 years, the expenditure on public works will be about $120 billion. In the past, it was about $90 billion. We plan to spend a bit more. That's why we make use of market forces to issue bonds, which is one of the means we have.
Second last row, the lady in grey. Good afternoon, Financial Secretary. I'm from Singtel. There isn't a tax deduction for salaries tax, and does that mean in the medium and long term, the government is making the middle class suffer? And how will the government ride out the storm with the general public also? There will be this boundary facilities fee on private cars departing via land boundary control points. Do you think this will have an impact on the northbound traveling scheme as well as the southbound travel scheme? We have studied this. With the current public financial situation, we have to increase revenue and cut costs. As mentioned, we have to take into account our competitiveness. We have been competing with other places to attract capital and businesses. We have to tread carefully as we introduce new taxes. We have to factor in our competitiveness. We try to minimize the impact on the general public as we introduce taxes. However, some impacts might be inevitable. As you mentioned, we are going to introduce this boundary facilities fee on private cars departing via land boundary control points. We have devoted a lot of resources on building the boundary control points facilities. We hope to adhere to the user pays principle as we introduce this tax. We have asked the relevant policy bureau to carry out a study so that we won't pose too much impact on the traffic, which might affect people's travel. And at the same time, we want to recover costs and resources. This is our major consideration. Let me add one more point. For the middle class, well, given the current public financial situation, we ask for your understanding that the resources have been cut by half for the public. The gentleman in grey with glasses.
Questions from the South China Morning Post. Firstly, could the government provide further details on the legalization of basketball betting? What is the time frame for this, and how much money would the government expect to gain from this measure? Secondly, what is your opinion on the suggestions of some observers that the government would need to explore new forms of revenue in the long term to solve the government's deficit? Would it consider something like a sales tax or other forms of increasing revenue to better balance its books? Thank you.
Thank you. Firstly, about basketball betting, we are aware of the fact that there are certain degree of illegal betting activities going on. So it is better to properly regularize this. And on this, we have invited the Hong Kong Jockey Club to study the matter and give a proposal to the government for consideration. Currently, the rough estimate, depending on the final scheme, rough estimate perhaps every year, if we are going to introduce betting duty to regularize basketball betting, that will give us about 1.5 to 2 billion Hong Kong dollar in terms of revenue. As to your question about the possibility of introducing a new form of tax, our guiding principle is that in considering any revenue measures, particularly tax-related measures, we have to pay regard to the following considerations. One is the competitiveness of Hong Kong in terms of attracting investment and talent. Secondly, if we are to increase revenue, we try to minimize the impact on the average citizen. So that is the guiding principle we have. And at the moment, we have no intention to introduce any form of GST or sales tax. We do think that we have put up a very credible fiscal consolidation plan. On the one hand, we increase some revenue, which would not, the measures would not impair our competitiveness. But more importantly, we try to cut down the expenditure growth of the government as the major means to achieve fiscal balance. That is why in the coming few years, up to 27, 28, cumulatively, we will be able to slash public government expenditure by about 7%, and also cutting the establishment. So we do believe we have a plan, we have specific steps moving towards the right direction to achieve balance. Yeah, thank you.
好，下一條提問嚇。
Next question. On the far end, the gentleman in suit. Good afternoon, I'm from TVB. I see that according to the budget, the government will issue bonds for infrastructure.
啲評級啦。另外咧就係都想問翻咧，其實見到財你都提到係預緊3個財政年度之後就可以即係大概係有個收支平衡，亦都
fiscal balance, and that there will no longer be a deficit. Why are you so confident that within 3 fiscal years you'll be able to achieve that? Are you overly optimistic? Thank you. The government has been issuing short-term bonds. As you may remember, we normally issue bonds for a 3-year period. This is because the interest rate is lower for short-term bonds. We can issue bonds anytime if we want, and those bonds will be purchased by the market. Given this, it is more cost-effective to issue short-term bonds because the interest rate is low. So all along we've been issuing short-term bonds, and naturally there is debt that we have to repay. This is kind of a financing measure in the business sector. Making use of low interest rate and issuing bonds to finance the projects is quite common. So the short interest rate is one of the merits to issuing short-term bonds. We're going to develop the Northern Metropolis. We are going to devote many resources in the preliminary stage, and we will only recover costs at a later stage. If we are to issue bonds to take forward the infrastructure development, would it be more appropriate for us to issue long-term bonds instead? We will think about it. In relation to the operating account, we will restore fiscal balance within 2 to 3 years. The reason is that if you look at, even with the volatility of fiscal cycles, we have been getting stable tax revenue. we have strong resilience in terms of our economy. When we encounter economic headwinds, some sectors may be hard hit. However, some sectors should fare better. For example, for the catering industry, it's been quite challenging for them. But for the financial industry, it's quite good. So overall speaking, we are quite resilient in terms of our tax revenue. Also, under this fiscal consolidation program, we are going to slash expenditure as well as contain the civil service establishment. And we'll be able to balance our books within 3 years' time, as we are going to restore balance for our operating account. We will devote resources and we need capital for the Northern Metropolis development. Apart from using land premium from land sales to support the development project, we have to issue bonds to fill the gap for the cash flow.
係藍色衫。
The gentleman closer to me in the blue top. I'm from Tai Kung Pao. In this budget, it covers different sectors in society, say, for example, elderly allowance, transport subsidies, and subsidies to students. Is it the case that the government wants to make use of the budget to send out the message that different sectors will have to make contributions in times of fiscal deficit? And, how do you plan to respond to the reaction of the general public? You mentioned about the $2 transport scheme. We have been collecting views from the general public and the Legislative Council. We now propose a fare of $2 or 20%. On one hand, we want to make use of this to control the extent of increase under the scheme, increase of expenditure. We are fully aware that the objective of the scheme is very good. It encourages the elderly to go out, see friends, and engage in activities, which is very good. We now propose an adjustment. This adjustment takes into account the policy objective and a control of the long-term expenditure of the scheme. We have struck a balance. We ask for your understanding. Next question. On the far side, in the middle, the lady with short hair and a white jacket. Yes, you. I'm from Shenzhen Satellite TV. There is a lot of ink on expediting AI development in Hong Kong. Yesterday, there was a report from Shenzhen saying that there will be a number of measures to develop AI. So what is the size of the funding support to develop AI? And in what specific areas will you focus on in the development of AI? Innovation and technology is an important industry of our future development. It is also very important. They are also very important elements in new quality productive forces. We want to consolidate and strengthen our traditional industries, say financial services and trade. At the same time, we want to create new driving forces. AI is a very important area under innovation and technology. It is a major driving force for any development. We want to use AI as the core. We want to make use of AI to enable other industries to transform and upgrade. We are going to have the AI Supercomputing Center, an R&D institute. There will be funding allocations to universities to promote the development of AI. In relation to cooperation with Shenzhen, we make use of Northern Metropolis and the Loop, Hetao. We are going to have a complementary cooperation and development. It's not just about AI. And there will be life and health. In the loop, there will be exchanges of important elements on different industries. So North Metropolis and the Hetao or Loop area will be very important platforms. We will work together with Guangdong province to try to get support from our country. Next question. The lady who is closer to me.
English questions from RTHK. So first, how likely all the measures to make savings will help the government's cover to return to black? And will these measures block future development of Hong Kong? And the second question, are you worried that the proposed pay freeze on civil servants will affect morale and any likelihood public services will be affected as well? Thank you.
Yeah, on the first question about first question, if I may invite Mr. Andrew Lai to give you a reply. Yeah, thank you.
Yep, thank you, FS. In terms of the expenditure cut program in the enhanced fiscal consolidation program, we are going to reduce government expenditure 2% each year in the coming 3 years. And it will contribute towards our saving program and help bureaus and departments to redeploy these resources to other more important areas. And it is one of the important measures for us to restore the balance in our operating account. And regarding your questions about civil service pay fees, being a civil servant, I think we understand the sentiment in the community. We are willing to work hard together with the members of public and also all sectors to promote the economic development of Hong Kong.
Thank you.
好，下一條提問喺遠處。
Next question. On the far side, the lady in white with glasses.
Two English questions from China Daily. And my first question is, with the adjustments in monetary policy by major central banks, what influence do you think this will have on Hong Kong economy and financial markets? And my second question is, in the face of increasing uncertainty worldwide, what steps should Hong Kong take to mitigate external risks? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The central banks around the world is going to loosen their monetary policy. So the liquidity in the market will be quickly enhanced. So we are of the view that the capital market in the coming months, given this more relaxed monetary situation, would have support. But of course, capital market also subject to a whole range of other influencing factors, like geopolitics, impacting capital flow. So for us, I think the most fundamental is for us to continue to enhance the competitiveness of our capital market, so that despite external uncertainties, we will be able to attract the best companies to come to Hong Kong for listing. And with quality companies being listed here, they will attract investments and investors from all over the world. Relatedly, in regard to your second question, in order to mitigate the impact of geopolitics on capital flow and investment sentiment, we need to open up new market, new investor source, new capital source. So our strategy is that on the one hand, we will continue to engage the developed economies, the US, Europe, to solidify the relationship and to retain this investment. But at the same time, diversify our efforts to new markets like the Middle East and Southeast Asia to attract more investors, more quality issuers coming to Hong Kong. That is our response. And relatedly, our motherland companies on the mainland are going global. In this process, we would be able to serve them as the best platform for their internationalization. So our positioning is two-faced. Facing mainland companies, we invite them to set up their regional or international headquarters in Hong Kong. And using this platform for trade finance, supply chain management, and other high value-added services. Yeah, thank you.
好，下一條提問，
Next question, last row, the gentleman in white. I'm from cable TV. On civil service pay freeze, will the patron survey still be carried out? If not, are you disregarding this mechanism and are you setting precedent by doing so? Also, the principal officials will also have a pay freeze. Will you have a further pay cut on the principal officials to show your determination to ride out the storm with the general public? Also, I see that there is the fiscal consolidation program, but the total expenditure will reach $820 billion. And this is the highest after the reunification. Is there a structural deficit? How do you convince the public that they should be confident about the future of Hong Kong and that you will keep the accounts and under control on pay freeze? As announced by the budget, there will be a pay freeze for all personnel of executive authorities, the legislature, and the judiciary. The Civil Service Bureau will announce the details in due course. Within the legislature as well as the judiciary, in terms of the arrangement, the relevant agencies as well as organizations will make the announcement. In relation to the medium-range forecast, as mentioned, we have the reinforced version of the fiscal consolidation program. Will strictly control government expenditure as the main focus, supplemented by increasing revenue. We will make good use of government resources, and this will help us restore balance of our operating accounts. After we restore balance by year 2026 and 27, there will be surplus recorded in the operating account. The relevant measures are set out in the budget, and I've also made a response when I addressed the other questions. On the recurrent expenditure, we have a concrete plan to increase revenue moderately and slash expenditure significantly, and also we will contain the expenditure growth. We are confident that we will achieve our target. In relation to the capital account, it concerns mostly expenditure for capital works. Apart from having land premium, we will issue bonds. the debt to GDP ratio will be 16.5% after we issue bonds, and this is a healthy level. In relation to unpaid debt to GDP ratio, I will ask Mr. Adolf Learn, our economist, to tell you more. The debt to GDP ratio will remain at 10% for the medium range forecast. This is an acceptable level in terms of the international standards. For other places or economies, the debt to GDP ratio is way higher than ours. So we think that this is a sustainable level. So why a pay freeze instead of a pay cut? The speaker is off the mic. We have the support of our civil servants as we introduce the pay freeze. We think it is an appropriate time for us to roll out this measure now. Even with the pay trend survey, even if we have the outcome of the survey, we have to take into consideration the 6 factors on whether we should adjust the civil service pay. And we have to also consider the public fiscal position as we decide on the adjustment. So we don't think it is appropriate for us to follow the survey now. Now, let me say this again. As we consider the pay adjustment for principal officials, we take into consideration the following matters. First, over the past 2 years, Hong Kong's economy has been growing, and this year we record a 2 to 3% growth. According to our medium-range forecast, we think the economy will continue to grow. The growth will reach 2.9%. Secondly, we take into consideration people's income. Over the past few years, we see in nominal terms a growth of 6.9% of people's income and earnings. Thirdly, we have introduced a reinforced version of the fiscal consolidation program. By year 2026 and 27, we will restore balance for the operating account, and we will return to a surplus then. With all these considerations in mind, we think that it is an appropriate measure for us to impose a pay freeze for principal officials. The last row, the lady over there.
I have a question for Mr. Hui. In the budget, there will be a second policy statement on virtual assets. How do you assess the effect of the second statement? Do you have any goals? A question for the FS. Will the government provide more support in a particular area? Thank you for your question. You may recall that a few years ago, we issued the first policies statement in relation to the development of virtual assets. We wanted to create a virtual asset ecosystem. We have put in place a number of measures. We started regulation of virtual asset platforms and exchanges. We've also launched relevant products. After the policy statement was announced, we have gauged responses, and we've also assessed the effectiveness of our policies. And you may recall that there is a well-known conference consensus. They have chosen Hong Kong as the location, as the conference, which is the first in Asia. there will be about 330 events and activities taking place in Hong Kong. After we have announced the first policy statement, we have gauged the implementation and acceptance. We found that the statement was very well received. The second policy statement will be on a more macro level as to how we can promote further development of this market. As someone mentioned, there is a great certainty in the external environment. In this environment, we need to provide more certainty. We provide more certainty in terms of policy, which is what the second policy statement will do. And then that's the major direction of the second policy statement. In relation to financial market, fintech is an important area, and virtual assets is a part of it. We have the SFC, we have the Monetary Authority, who are regulators, and we also talk to different stakeholders to pick their brains as to how we can further develop this area. At the same time, we work with Shenzhen on the use of fintech. There will be a sandbox regime to promote cross-boundary financial services.
Next question on the far end, the second row. The lady in gray. Good afternoon, secretaries. I'm from RTHK. I'd like to ask about the cancellation of the $2,500 for primary and secondary students. Why do you choose to slash this measure? Why do you cancel this altogether instead of reducing the subsidy? Also, on the stock market, there's a large part in the budget about the financial development in Hong Kong. The transactions have been on the high side. The Hang Seng Index reached 24,000 points, and there have been about $350 billion of transactions after the announcement of the budget. Will you roll out measures on the stamp duty to keep the growth of the transactions? On the $2,005 subsidy, I will ask Mr. Lai to address the question. As mentioned, under the enhanced fiscal consolidation program, we will strictly control expenditure as the main focus, supplemented by increasing revenue. So every year we'll have to cut expenditure by 2%. We are trying to give the maximum level of flexibility for each bureau and department. The estimate for each government department will be 2% less for this year. As to how the expenditure should be cut, we leave it to individual departments and bureau to see whether there is room to lift certain measures or, for example, reduce manpower. So we really leave it to the individual government departments and bureaus to make the decision. The Education Bureau, for example, will also have to cut cost. Perhaps given the decline in terms of the number of primary and secondary school students, they made the decision, and we leave it to the Bureau to make a judgment on that. There will be a press conference on that later. You mentioned about the reform on the stock market. Over the past few years, we wrote out different types of reforms. For example, the listing regime, as well as the co-weighted voting rights. The target is that we want the financial market can move with the times. And with the changes in our economy, we can allow different companies and enterprises to list in Hong Kong. Some private equity funds are mentioned in the budget, and we have measures for that. So we'll continue to explore in this regard. We want to enhance the appeal of our market so that companies from different sectors can list in Hong Kong to enrich the market with greater liquidity. We can then attract even more companies to list in Hong Kong. And then there will be a higher stamp duty. With a buoyant financial market, it can also benefit the other sectors and industries. Next question. The lady in the first row in the far end. I'm from AM730. On the $2 scheme, there are views that the number of trips will be capped at 240 every month under the scheme. And this is still quite generous, according to some people. Do you agree? And how do you come up with the limit of 240 trips per month? Also, does this new measure manage to combat abuse of the scheme as well as address the issue of people taking short rides on long-distance routes? Yes, Mr. Lai. We have to take into consideration the actual situation. We don't want to cause any nuisances to our elderly people. People will get 8 trips per day under the scheme. However, you have to consider that some elderly people may have to change buses or change trains when they go out. So we want to leave a certain level of flexibility for our passengers. We want to be as lenient as possible. Next question. Closer to me, the reporter in blue. Good afternoon, I'm from Meng Pao. $100 billion for recurrent expenditure. You have to spend within limits, and does it align with the basic law in terms of spending within limits? By the time you leave this post after the current term government, there will still be a deficit. Do you think you are leaving a mess for your future predecessors? Well, I think you are referring to the endowment funds. When the endowment funds were established, the funds came from the operating account. Now that with the surplus from these funds, of course, they will go back to the operating account. It is as simple as that. With regards to restoring fiscal balance, as mentioned, there are 2 parts to our government accounts. One is operating account, the other one is capital account. For operating account, it has to do with our tax revenue as well as expenditure. For capital account, it has to do with investment in infrastructure. 2 years later, we will restore fiscal balance by year 2026 and 27. Then we will have a surplus every year, and the surplus will support the capital account. In the coming few years, we have to make preparation for the development of the northern metropolis. This is because it is going to be an important INT hub in Hong Kong. It is going to be an important growth area for our economy in terms of our housing development or industry development. As we take forward the We are currently devoting a lot of resources into the capital works as well as public works projects in the northern metropolis. It is only at the later stage that we will be able to recover the costs. So we have to leverage the market forces. There are different ways to do so. It could be done through large-scale land disposal approach or public-private partnership. We can also issue bonds, for example, to raise funds. We think that this is appropriate, and this is going to be the most beneficial for the future of Hong Kong as well as the local economy.
Next question. Next question. On the far side, second row. The reporter in black. Just now, the FS talked about Northern Metropolis and infrastructure, its investment for the future. When will they bring actual economic benefit? Have you conducted an assessment and a prediction? The Northern Metropolis is a large area. It accounts for about 1/3 of the area in Hong Kong. Development area is about 3,000 hectares. We have to devote a large amount of capital upfront. We have to form the land and have advanced preparations so that in the future there will be residential areas as well as areas for industries. We try to attract capital and businesses. From the end of 2020, we have about 60 strategic enterprises coming to Hong Kong. In the new batch, there'll be about 10. They will invest in Hong Kong about $50 billion, creating about 20,000 jobs. The benefit, say for example, the tax received will be realized shortly after that. We have about 500 new enterprises that will go to these areas, and there is a direct investment of a large amount. So we have to wait till these enterprises to come to Hong Kong to settle, to start operation before we can reap the benefits. We'll have to wait for a period of time before the benefits are realized. But in some areas, we see the benefits more quickly. Say, for example, cooperation at the Loop area. We see the benefits earlier because operation has started. We'll take questions from the last 3 reporters. The reporter in a shirt. I'm from
tensions and the possibility of a trade war been factored into Hong Kong's growth target in the coming year and also in the medium-range forecast? My second question is revenue from land premiums last year is the lowest in 2 decades, and also for multiple years in a row it missed the estimates. With today's new estimate, is it an indication that land sales revival is unlikely, and how confident is the government to hit that estimate? And finally, this may be the first year since 1998 that Hong Kong's budget does not have a satisfaction rating from a reputable public poll. How will the government assess whether the public supports the budget?
Let me invite our government economist to respond to your first 2 questions.
Yes, on the issue of rising trade tension between China and the US, of course, it will have some sort of negative impacts. But according to what we have done to adjust the situation, like, lowering our share of exports to the US, we believe that it should be manageable, and we should be able to manage the situation gradually and better. But at the same time, although there are some sort of rising trade tensions between two countries, but there are also other favorable factors supporting the Hong Kong economy, like the shifting of the global economic gravity to Asia, particularly to China, and the central government is now introducing a number of measures to support both the long-term growth and also the short-term growth. In the short run, they have a more proactive fiscal policy and also some more accommodative monetary policy. And in the long run, is vigorously promoting the growth of new quality productive force and also developing high quality growth. And these will all support Hong Kong's economic growth in the medium term from the demand side. And on the supply side, over the past few years, we have been doing a lot to expand our productive capacity, enhance our competitiveness, and also developing new growth areas. And these efforts are all bearing fruits and will gradually contribute to Hong Kong's economic growth in the coming years.
Yeah, we have introduced a fiscal consolidation program in this budget. So on the one hand, we try our best to diversify and grow our economy. But at the same time, it is a belt-tightening budget. So everybody in the community would need to contribute to this effort. So we are trying to do the best we can in minimizing the impact on our people. But at the same time, unavoidably, everyone to chip in a little bit. And I hope people understand. As to the land premium, we have been adopting a very conservative estimate. The land revenue for this year and the following year are based on the land sale program, which have taken into account the market condition at the moment. As to the land income for the following 3 years, meaning from following 2 years for the rest of the medium-term period, are on the basis of gradually increasing to about some 2% of our GDP. And this percentage compared with our historical average, which is about 3.3%, is very conservative. But we do think that at the current economic situation, it would be responsible on the part of the government to adopt a relatively conservative estimate about land income in the budget. That would be giving the market more confidence in the sense that despite perhaps a slower rebound in the property market, overall, the financial position of the government remain robust and strong. Thank you.
好，下一條提問就係
The last row on the far hand, the lady in white, the lady closer to my side.
From Economic Daily. Last year, with the scrapping of the demand side management, it stimulated the property market. This year, do you have any goals in relation to the property market? Just now, you mentioned about preparations by the Hong Kong EX. The new measures, how are they different from the previous ones? In relation to the technology enterprises channel, where we provide support for INT companies to be listed in Hong Kong. Before they submit the official application, they have to first seek in relation to regulatory issues. We want to provide more flexibility to these prospective companies. Before they submit their applications, we want to provide advice service to them so that they have an idea about regulatory problems. This enables them to make preparations. We want to facilitate them before the submission of application. That is, there will be a more focused discussion on, say, regulatory issues to make the applications smoother. Regarding the property market, I will defer to Mr. Leung, government economist. I would like to first state that the stamp duty is to lighten the burden on home purchases. It's not a measure that targets the property market. The property market is affected by a number of factors, one of which is interest rate. There may be an interest cut. The situation in the US may increase uncertainty in the interest rate cycle, but we think that there will be an interest rate cut. In terms of attracting talents, our efforts have borne fruit, so there will be an increase in demand. We reckon there will be a stable development this year in the property market.
最後一條嘅提問啦。
We'll take questions from the last reporter. The second row, the reporter over there, who is closer to my side.
I'm from a newspaper from the mainland. Between 2018 and 2023, the government has devoted over $150 billion on INT. This time, there will be another $1 billion on this area as well. So how do you make sure that what you have devoted into these areas will in the end benefit Hong Kong? We have been allocating resources and funding to promote the development of innovation and technology. In the past, it focused on R&D, especially in universities. We have a very strong ability in the region. Universities rank quite high in terms of R&D. But in addition to R&D, we would also like to do something to midstream research as well as application, not just frontier research. So we want to shift our focus somewhat to pilot application as well as commercialization. That's why we have different measures, say, for example, to support new industrialization. And there is also one in relation to manufacturing, upgrade on smart production lines. In Northern Metropolis and the River Loop, we will also attract INT companies to develop in these areas. it may take another year or two. About a year ago, when we launched the development blueprint for INT, that's around 2023, it stated that we hope that the GDP contribution of INT will be about 5%, and we still go along this line. That's the end of the press conference. Thank you. Thank you. This is the end of the press conference. Thank you.
唔好意思，我哋記者會去到呢度啦。
I'm sorry, this is the end of the press conference.
唔好意思，要守一守秩序有啲。